Okay, welcome back to part 2 of our diffusion kitchen experiment with jelly. So the next ones we've got are our 2 centimetre cubes. Ooh, if you can just see them there. Okay, remember I mentioned in the previous video that they are a little bit jagged, so I did the best I could cutting them, but it's quite tough to cut jelly as it is agar. Agar cuts a little bit more cleanly. Okay, so I'm just going to put 1 in each tumbler. So I've just got plain tumblers. You'd obviously use beakers in a lab. So what I'm going to do is, again, I'm going to add 50 mils of boiling water, freshly boiled water. As soon as it clicks, I'm going to put it into my measuring jug, measure as close as I can, 50 mils, bringing myself down to look at the measure at the base of the meniscus, and then I'm going to put it in the back one first, then the next, and then the next, okay? Okay, so have a look at the timestamp as I put the first one in, or start your clock. Oh, perfect. Number 2 and number 3. Yeah, I've done them as close to 50 as I can. Obviously, I'm trying to be quite quick. Number 3. Okay. And I'm not sure if I mentioned in the previous video, this is obviously tap water instead of distilled water that we'd ordinarily use. And it obviously has come out of my kitchen kettle. Okay, so number 1, number 2, you can see the diffusion starting already. There's a small kind of coloration around the edges. I will say as well, when I put these ones in, there was a slight residue from the previous ones. Now, obviously, we'd use fresh beakers in the lab, so that could be noted down as an error. That there was a slight residue of kind of jelly at the base and possibly a little bit of water as well, which would impact the experiments. Okay, yeah, I can definitely see it diffusing. I hope you can too. I'm just gonna bring it down to rest. Okay, so this is number 1. Still quite a large amount of jelly left. Try not to swell it too much just so you can see it. Okay, number 2. And then number 3. Okay, so we've got some time for these to dissolve. If you've ever made jelly, you know how long it takes to dissolve, even with boiling water. So on the previous ones, the 1.5s, I did stir them, so I'm going to stir these as well to make it a fair test. Okay, 5. 5. 5. Okay. You will need the stirring on these ones because they're quite chunky. Normally, if I was making jelly, obviously I am making jelly, but I would cut them much smaller than this for them to dissolve. So I know these are quite big chunks. So we may have to wait a couple of minutes. The smell is wonderful though, I'll tell you that now. The smell is gorgeous in my kitchen of strawberry jelly. The kids will love it as well, having this tonight for dessert. Okay, so they're still quite large. They are diffusing, they are dissolving. The first one in particular does look slightly darker. I would say they're a fairly even size at the minute. Visually, to the naked eye that I can see, they look pretty much a very similar size. So I would say there's a fairly constant rate, and I do think they were fairly good size, so you can still see it there at the bottom. I don't want to swell too much, like I said, but it does help you visualize. Yeah, I would say they're about the same size at the minute. Okay, so we'll keep our eye on the first one because I would expect the first one to go first, although this middle one does look, ooh. I would say this middle one looks smaller. Should we just keep our eye on number 2 as well? Yeah, number 1's bigger, look. Number 2 is much smaller. Okay, so we're just keeping our eye. And we'll just keep an eye on the timestamp. So these are your 3 repeats. So I mentioned in the previous video, so hopefully you've seen it already, but if we were doing agar with phenolphthalein, we wouldn't be waiting for it to dissolve completely. We'd just be looking for the colour change. The cube will still say it is it diffuses to the center. So the indicator pink color is gone and it becomes transparent. Okay. I think that middle one, I can still see it myself. I will tell you when it disappears. Oh, the first one's looking good as well, actually. Let me just check. Oh, okay, they are going very similar. So I would say stop the clock on number 2. So look at the timestamp. I would say number 1 is next. It's not far behind. It's just a tiny bit. I don't know if you can see it just moving. Yep, gone. Quickly move to number 3. This was by far the biggest. Yeah, I'd say that's gone as well. Okay, so stop the clock on all 3 or check your timestamp for how long they've taken. So considering they were 2 centimeters cubed, they haven't done too bad. They may be just wisps. I can see it moving round still, but I'm hoping it has all dissolved. Okay, so make a note of those and the errors. Start a table for the 1.5 centimeter cubed and the 2 centimeters cubed. Okay, with the brief method, obviously we can compare it to the phenolphthalein method, which is the one we would be using in the lab. We're just simulating with our kitchen experiment here.